gave me chopsticks. I don't do that.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're well. Today is Wednesday. It's the 20th of March, and it is going to be a Parshas Vayikra soon, this Shabbos. But today, instead of focusing on the Parshas HaShavua, we're going to focus on Purim because Purim is right around the corner. So let's see. I wanted to share with you today. We're going to see if we have time. Five different insights on Megillas Esther from Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky passed away just a few short years ago. He has a sefer that's on Chumash, but it's also on other parts of Tanakh called Taima Dekra. And again, I'm no expert on Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky's writing. One thing that I have seen, though, that is very interesting is that he will always take note of malay and chaser when a word is spelled. Sometimes he'll notice, wow, look at that. Achashverosh is spelled, except for 4 places in the Megillah, it's spelled full, and sometimes it's spelled missing the vavs. What's the significance of those places where it's missing the vavs? He'll also find other words. So that's something that I noticed he does throughout his Perush on Chumash, and I saw, he didn't disappoint. He did that here in the Megillah as well. I call this part 1 just because of the fact he's got a lot written on Megillas Esther. We're obviously not going to go through it all. So this will be part 1. Who knows when we'll get to part 2? I don't know if that'll be later in the year. Maybe that'll be next Purim. We'll continue exploring his work. We'll see. But let's jump in. We're going to see five beautiful ideas from him, and this is just covering the first 4 prakim. I believe there's 9 prakim altogether, or is it 10? It could be 10. It could be 10. All right. So I only had a chance this year to look at his parish, to look through it really quick on the first 4 prakim. So that's what we're going to be focused on today, and that's why we called it part 1. So let's see. By the way, just something to know about Rav Chaim Kanievsky. He has a number of smaller svarim that are written on somewhat obscure topics. He was very much of the opinion that it's all Torah, it's all halacha. Just because it doesn't come up often, or just because people don't study it often, that doesn't mean it should be ignored. So when did he have the time to write these? So this is something fascinating. A year like this, if he was still alive, he would have been busy. He had a very regimented learning schedule that every year, Erev Pesach, he would make a siyum on basically Kol HaTorah Kula. It would be all of Tanakh, all of Halacha, all of Medrash, all of Shas Yerushalmi, Shas Bavli, and all of Mishnah. He had a very regimented learning every day, how much he would knock off of each to keep on that schedule. That was a 12-month schedule. So in a year like this, when there was an extra month, what did he do with Adar Beis? Adar Beis, that was what he would wait whenever this happened. Okay, let me write that sefer that I've had on my back burner that I've never had a chance to get to. So the man was productive, and he made the most of his time. And it just kind of makes me wonder, like, oh my gosh, am I squandering my time, or am I making the most of it? So he looked forward to a leap year like this, when it would be a Shana Mu'beres, an extra month of Adar, and that would be when he got to that project that had been on his back burner. So I don't know what he would have put together this year if he had still been alive and well. All right, so let's see. So we're going to take a look at I think I've got here 5 nice insights I saw in the Taima Dekra on Megillas Esther. So let's see. The first one's in Perek Aleph, in the first chapter. This one I thought was very cool because Rabbi Fishbein actually gave us a heads up when he was here a couple of weeks ago. Rabbi Shalom Fishbein from the CRC, he referenced this in one of his talks. I don't remember if it was Friday night or Shabbos morning, but it was definitely when we were in the shul. So let's see what this was. In Perek Aleph, Pasuk Ches. So it's talking about that wild party that Achashverosh threw to celebrate the fact that, according to his calculations, Galus Bavel had ended, the period of time when the Jews were supposed to be exiled in Babylon. Beis Hamikdash was not being rebuilt. So he's having this wild party showing now that the Persian Empire is going to be there to last. And he's bringing out all the nice kalim. According to the Medrash, those kalim were kalim from the Beis Hamikdash. He was wearing his finest clothes. According to the Medrash, again, he was wearing the clothes of the Kohen Gadol. And this was a very sacrilegious, blasphemous event. And part of the reason the Gemara says why Hashem felt that the Jews needed to be punished in that generation was because most, if not all, of Klal Yisrael who had the ability to took part in that Seudah. They may have had all the calculations saying, well, we have to show that we're loyal citizens. But if the whole nature of this feast was to celebrate the fact that the Jews were going to remain in diaspora, we're not going to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, this was a very a terrible event to be part of. And according to the Gemara, Mordechai spent a lot of time warning the Jews of Shushan and the area, don't participate in this. This is against Hashem's will. Don't participate in this. Let's see what he writes here. So it's on Perek Aleph Pasuk Ches. It says, V'hashtia kadas ein ones. The drinking was in accordance with the law. No one was coercing. So everyone had what they wanted to drink, your favorite brew, your favorite wine, whatever it was, there was something for everyone. No one was forced to drink something they didn't want. Kikeni Yisad HaMelech, this was how the king established it, had ordained it. Al kol rav beisol asos kirtzon ish veish. Upon every steward of his house, meaning all of the waiters, all of the staff that was there, that everybody should get what they want. In other words, everybody's diet and everybody's drinking needs would be met. Let's see what Rav Chaim does with this. So he says, Lasos kirtzon ish veish. He quotes a very perplexing Gemara in Maseches Megillah. The Gemara says in Maseches Megillah, it says Lasos kirtzon ish veish. So Chazal darshan that's not an accident, that it refers to ish veish. Who is ish veish? So it says, the Gemara Megillah says, Kirtzon Mordechai v'Haman, that everything at this party should be according to the plans of, meaning the diet and the drinks should be according to the wishes, desires of Mordechai and Haman. Perish Rashi explains there, Heim hayu sarei hamashkim besuda, that they actually served as the chief butlers at this celebration. So Rav Chaim says, now 1 second, Tema, and it's so funny. So I told Dr. Yosef Khan, when Rabbi Fishman was here, I said, oh my God, this is wild. He just asked me this question the other week. He said, isn't that the strangest thing? What is Mordechai doing at the Seuda? This was a man who had been on the Sanhedrin when Yerushalayim had the Sanhedrin. He went into exile with Yechaniah HaMelech, and now he's serving as a head butler. What is going on? So Tema, Rav Chaim asks, Eich Hiskim Mordechai Leo Saramashkim. So Rav Chaim asks better than Yosef Khan, no offense there. He says, why on earth is Mordechai agreeing to serve months, warning everyone, don't go to this party. This is a sacrilegious event where they're going to celebrate the fact that according to their calculations, the Beis Hamikdash has not been rebuilt and will not be rebuilt. Don't go. It would be the biggest chil Hashem for you all to go. And now the party happens, and who's one of the chief waiters? Mordechai. What's he doing there? Doesn't he realize by being in attendance, people are going to say, oh, must be that everything's legit. Mordechai's there. He wouldn't be there if this wasn't legit. This is going to be a massive machshil. It's going to be a stumbling block. Why on earth would Mordechai agree to this? Mordechai, according to the Medrash, had spent a long time cautioning everyone. They shouldn't take part in this event. No matter how it was billed, no matter how much they said, we're going to make sure there's kosher food, don't go. It's a chil Hashem to be there, because what they're really celebrating is that according to their calculations, there's not going to be another Beis Hamikdash. Kedusha Bester Rabban, he quotes, that's what the Medrash says, that Mordechai spent a long time cautioning everyone, don't be part of this. So now, according to the Gemara, he's there as a chief butler? How do you explain this? V'yesh lomar. So here's how Rav Chaim says, I'll explain this. The Mehai Taima, the Emes Ratza, that is exactly why Mordechai was there. The Emes Ratza Mordechai Leo Sarmashka. Mordechai insisted, if this party's going to go on and Jews are going to show up, despite all my warning, I want to be there as the chief butler. Kedei Lishmor Hayayin. I want to at least stand guard over the wine, uletaro, and keep it tahar, because the wine wasn't mevushal. There wasn't mevushal wine. And if there's idolatry around and there's not mevushal wine, you got issues of yayin nesach. And even if there's no idolatry around, the Rabbana and the Chazal had already made the gezerah that if a non-Jew comes into contact and moves that open wine that's non-mevushal, then it's stam yenom and it shouldn't be drank. So you've either got two issues of yayin nesach or stam yenom at this point. And Mordechai says, you're right. If you ask me, should any Jews be there? No. But I'm a realist. I know some Jews will be there. What can I do at least to minimize the isser? So he says, Lishmar Ayayin, to keep guard over the wine, uletaro, and keep it tahar. Shlo yisnasech. So none of the idolaters should use it as yayin nesach, use it for some pagan ritual, and then that would cause all the Jews who were there against his wishes, now they'd be drinking it, and it would be yayin nesach, v'lizro kisim, and he also wanted to be there near the kitchen so he can throw a wood chip in the oven. Why? Ulishagra tanor, and to play a part in warming up the oven. He wanted to at least save Jews from bishul akum. There's a lot of items that were going to be served at the Suda. Even if they're kosher, they need bishul Yisrael. A Jew has to be involved in the cooking process. Mordechai did not, if you would ask him, should any Jew at this party be at this party? Absolutely not. So what are you doing there? I'm a realist. I know there are going to be some Jews there. And what can I do? Hashem's going to be upset. How can I keep it that Hashem won't be as upset? How can I at least make it that it will be Bishul Yisrael and the wine won't be Yayin Nesach? When we pas akum, I have to say them from Bishul akum, pas akum, kama efshar litzule matzlinan. Mordechai's idea was, whatever I could save, let me try and save. We sometimes have this idea that it's all or nothing. That it's all or nothing. And Mordechai is saying it's not all or nothing. Me as a leader, again, he probably had proclamations, don't go, no Jews should be there. But what do you mean? Now you're there. Isn't that gonna testify that it's okay? No, I just spent the last number of months saying don't be there. So why are you there? Because I know I'm a realist. There are going to be Jews here. They're going to say, hey, they're advertising it's glatt kosher, so they're going to show up. What can I at least do to minimize the sin? It's a chil Hashem. They shouldn't be there, but at least let me prevent them from eating bishul akum, pas akum, yayin nesach. Let me at least do that. That's how Rav Chaim wanted to learn this, which is fascinating because what it's saying in Rabbi Fishman was saying this in contemporary ideas. It could be this was Friday night. I don't remember that. Maybe it was this was Saturday morning. So what he was saying this was in contemporary events is that a very common idea that comes up with kashrus agencies is they're very nervous. Okay, I'm there. I'm putting my hashgacha on this, but what am I giving hashgacha to? Am I just saying that the food is kosher, or is there a larger picture that people are going to take in the whole scene and say this may be kosher? I'll give you an example. There was a restaurant / sports bar that was going to open, I remember, a number of years ago in New Jersey. And there was a whole tumult that went on because the kashrus agency said, we don't want to give a hechsher to that. And they said, what's the problem? Every single thing we're going to be serving is kosher. All the meat that's going to be in the grill is going to be kosher. Any drinks that are going to be served is going to be kosher. We have wine and alcohol at weddings, at a bar mitzvah. Why can't we have a sports bar? And one of the kosher agencies said it doesn't sit well with us because at a wedding it's a simcha shel mitzvah, it's a bar mitzvah, it's a simcha shel mitzvah, it's a mitzvah celebration. So people are getting together and there's wine, there could be some spirits, and there could be food, but that's all in the context of a mitzvah going on. Here, you're just basically trying to have a kosher bar and grill that basically the way it's being pitched isn't that it's primarily a restaurant that also has alcohol. There's tons of restaurants that also have alcohol. You're basically trying to create a kosher cheers was what they were saying. And that just doesn't sit well with us. We don't like this idea. I think it was situated very close to a yeshiva high school. And they were saying, we just don't like this message that it's sending is that, okay, you want to go watch the sports game and do it at the bar and there's going to be, alcohol. We're just not comfortable with that message. And there was a big debate because they went from kashrus agency to kashrus agency. And I remember there was one of them that primarily deals with New Jersey, and they were in the Bergenfield Teaneck area, and they were saying, we don't like this. We sat down as a group of rabbis saying, we don't like the message this is sending to our community. And now what are you doing? You're saying, okay, so you won't put us under the I think it's the BCRC, the Bergen County Rabbinical Council. You won't put us under there. Okay, so we'll go find another recognizable place, that's not going to have an issue. And I remember it was such a tumult. I remember being at a convention where they were debating this. You can hear both sides of the argument. One side of the argument is that, we're looking at the meta issue that's going on. The larger issue is that, and again, I think a big part of it was that it was very close proximity. Maybe it was down the block from a yeshiva high school, so they were very nervous about the message this was sending. Is that and then there was others saying, I don't get it. Everything's going to be kosher. So what's the problem? We're just trying to. I'm not ruling on it, but I could hear both sides of the issue. It looks like what Rav Chaim is saying here is he's explaining where Mordechai stood on this. Mordechai is saying is that your job is to keep everything kosher because there's going to be Jews who are going to be doing plenty of things that you're not happy with. At least keep things kosher. What they do, that's you can protest. So maybe he would have said is that whatever the local kashrus agency was, say, put up all sides, speak about it in every shul, saying we do not like this event, but we explain we're going to have a kashrus on it because people aren't going to listen to us and go anyhow. They're probably worried about we're sending mixed messages. It's a very difficult situation to be in, but I thought this was fascinating that he's using this to explain Mordechai here.
Quick question.
Yeah.
It says ish for ish, and so is it a fairly well-known that ish for ish refers to how many more?
Well, that's what the
Or is
Gemara,
this just
that's the Gemara. Then there's the
Gemara?
Gemara on Yud Beis says darshans, the way
Okay.
Chazal, one of the Tanaim or Amoraim, the way they wanted to darshan this was to say that this was a reference, ish ve'ish. The ish seems to be like an honorific title that it was saying that this was under the auspices of two very honorific people. Who were they? It was Mordechai and Haman. That's the way the Gemara, and that opens that whole door. Why is Mordechai? He's the last person who should be there. He was the guy trying to tell everyone, don't go. Now they're all going to say, what kind of hypocrite are you? And he says, no, that's exactly why I'm there. I really think nobody should be here, but there are going to be Jews here. What can I do to minimize the Isser? That's what he was saying his attitude was. So I think that's just a fascinating resource that I was looking this up because I remembered a tumult also that came up, and I found it online. There was a New York Times write-up about this. It was either in the late 1980s, early 1990s. There was someone who had the following idea that instead of just having a regular, high-scale restaurant in New York, they had something. It was a restaurant on a boat that would go basically around Manhattan. It was called the Glot Yacht. That was the I don't know how long it lasted for, the Glot Yacht. But what was the tumult? Why was New York Times getting involved? I don't want to say the name of the national hashgacha. There was a national hashgacha who was providing hashgacha to it. But the way the New York Times got involved was because they didn't own this boat. So it was obviously, it was a restaurant boat that was going around. Maybe it was owned, but they weren't the ones who built it. It was built with a dance floor. So sometimes it would be used for a bar mitzvah and stuff. And sometimes it would just be a regular night and, music would be playing, and couples, after enjoying a good meal and they still got a while left around to it, people would get up and start dancing. And this kashrus agency had advised their mashgichim that if you see that happen, you have to tell them either the dancing stops or we shut off the music. So this became a whole tumult. Like, what are you doing? Like, your job is just here to make sure there's kosher food. Leave me and my dancing alone. Like, I just had a nice meal. This was my anniversary. I wanna dance with my wife. Like, what are you bothering me for? And New York Times got wind of this, and they had this whole article about you may not be aware of this, but there's this raging debate going on about the Glot Yacht and whether or not the rabbis who are providing the kosher certification, did they have license to do anything outside the kitchen as well? It's a very interesting question, and you could definitely hear both sides of the debate. I thought this was fascinating how Rav Chaim's using this cryptic Gemara to say where Mordechai stood on that. Fascinating. Again, you could say, okay, that may have been specific to Mordechai, that he had spent months and months in his persona and the type of appeal that he had. So maybe he would be effective in this. I don't know. It's an argument that could be made, but I just thought this was a fascinating shot. Let's see the second thing that we're going to bring down from Rav Chaim. So this is in Perek Beis. In the second chapter in Perek Beis, it tells us that Esther followed up on Mordechai's advice. It says, Lo higida Esther asama, that she would not reveal what was her origin. Remember, this is the beauty pageant takes place, and Mordechai instructed her, okay, you got taken, you got roped in this incident. Please do me this favor. Tell me that you're not going to promise me that you won't reveal your background, who is your people. So it says, Lo higida Esther sama, she would not reveal her nation, Vesmularata, her family was. Ki Mordechai tziva aleh asher lo tagid. Mordechai commanded her, do not tell. So let's go to page 2. Now, if you were to ask me before seeing this piece from Reb Chaim Kanievsky, why was it so important to Mordechai that she not tell? So I would answer as follows: because Mordechai, and I think some of the commentaries say this, Mordechai understood that this must be somehow part of God's plan, that why she was roped into this. And who knows, this could be our ace in the hole in the future. Let's not blow it. Let's not put our cards on the table until that time comes. That's what I think Rashi brings this down, and others say this that idea as well, that's the plain meaning of why Mordechai told her, don't tell anyone that you're a Jew. Let's see what Rav Chaim Kanievsky does. He does something a little different. He says, Ki Mordechai tziva aleh asher lo tagid. He says, Hamefarshim kasu tamim. If you look in the commentaries, you'll find plenty of reasons. Lama Mordechai tziva aleh asher lo tagid. Why did Mordechai tell her that her job was to keep her identity a secret? And again, I think what I just said is the most common one, is that Mordechai had an inkling, if this is all taking place, this must be part of God's plan. Let's not blow her cover. Let's keep her under cover until the opportune time, and we'll see how this can be used to save Klal Yisrael. So he says he wants to offer another idea. Here's another reason. Mordechai understood Yisrael Yanshu, that Bnei Yisrael were going to be punished. Shenenu misudas Achashverosh. As best as he tried to warn everyone not to take part in the feast of Achashverosh, they did. Many members of Klal Yisrael did go, and he knows this was an incredible Chilul Hashem. He knows God's upset about this, and he knows they're going to be punished. V'imlo yada, if it's possible, v'imlo yada, if Achashverosh does not know, if he does end up marrying Esther, making her the queen, and he does not know that she's Jewish, how will this story play out? Yitakein, it's possible, she yigzor aleng zerara, that maybe Achashverosh will be the one to come up with an evil plot against the Jewish people. Va'al yedeze yachzeru b'tshuva. This could then inspire Klal Yisrael when they see that their goose is going to be cooked. This could inspire them to engage in tshuva. He, and since Achashverosh does not know which nation she is from, then Esther might be able to go in, plead the case, because she'll say, I'm really from the same people, which is actually the way it played out. So Mordechai is thinking like this, okay, Hashem is furious at Klal Yisrael. I understand that. What they did by taking part in this blasphemous, sacrilegious party, Hashem is furious at them. I'd like it to play out this way. Achashverosh, this should be a man-made decree. Achashverosh should plot something terrible about the Jewish people. They should be inspired, and I'll work my best to get them inspired to do teshuvah. And then we'll be able to use Esther to come in and say she's one of them, he's in love with her, and that will make it possible to rescind the decree. Aval, however, im yadu shehim Yisrael, if Achashverosh knows from the get-go that she's a Jew, lo yigzru gzera al Yisrael, he never would have made a gzera. He never would. He's in love with his queen. He never would have made this decree to eliminate Bnei Israel. But Bnei Israel still need to be punished because Hashem's so mad at them. So how's the punishment going to come? So now it's just going to have to be a heavenly punishment. That's a lot more difficult to annul. So Mordechai's thinking strategically. This is a fascinating cheshbon, what he's saying here. That Mordechai is thinking strategically. I know that God is furious at the Jewish people for participating wholeheartedly in the Sudas Achashverosh, and they deserve a punishment. I don't know yet how that punishment's going to come. How can we be mavatl? How can we nullify that punishment? So we got two options. If this punishment comes about, it's a man-made punishment, then we could engage in teshuvah, and then pull out the Esther card, and then we can make this happen. So he sees a path forward, how we could potentially save Bnei Yisrael this way. If it's not going to be with Achashverosh, though, if he knows she's Jewish right away, so he's not going to make the Gzera. And now it's just going to be a Gzera that, okay, there's going to be an earthquake, the ground's going to open up, and Israel all over the world are going to get swallowed. That's a God-made disaster. That's a lot more difficult to annul. That's going to need either a lot more teshuvah, that's going to need a lot more tefillah. That's something that it just seems like that's a whole different type of decree. A decree that's total min hashamayim decree is going to be a lot more difficult to annul. I want to figure out how they deserve a punishment. How can we make it that it's a man-made decree? A man-made decree, I see a way out. If it's a God decree, that's going to be a lot more work that I'm not so certain that I can get Klal Yisrael to engage in that degree of teshuvah. That's how he wants to set this up. I just think that's a fascinating idea. I don't know fully what that's based on. It sounds like what he's saying is that obviously everything is coming from God. God's orchestrating everything, but it seems like the more human involvement there is in carrying out God's will, the easier it is to undo it. So if it's coming about through Achashverosh, he feels it'll be easier to undo. That'll be easier to annul that decree. I could get them to do tshuva. He envisions a path forward. If it's not going to be human involved, it's going to be totally a God situation. There's going to be a tsunami that comes in. That's a lot. God's going to use the force of nature somehow. That's a lot more difficult to undo. I want to keep this man-made. How are we going to keep it man-made? Let's keep Esther. You got to keep it shut. Don't tell them yet that you're a Jew. Maybe that'll get this to play out, become a man-made disaster. Fascinating idea. That what?
probably learned that if you had to be punished and is there a story about it or something? If you had the choice between Hashem giving you the punishment or man, you prefer Hashem because there's more.
Rachams.
Yeah, but it seems here he's hoping not to get the punishment. He's hoping to steer Klal Yisrael in a fashion that they won't get punished. And he seems to be saying we want to get the decree annulled. He seems to be saying that if it's a man-made decree, I see a path forward. If it's a God-made decree and it's on a national level, the amount of teshuvah that's going to be needed that just might be overboard. If it's coming from a human, I could see a path forward. That's the way he's approaching this. It's just a fascinating idea. Again, the philosophical underpinnings of that, I'm not sure I understand, but it seems like that seems to be based. It's mavusam. It's based on the idea that a punishment by the means of a human is easier to annul and to steer clear of than a punishment by Hashem. Again, I don't know the basis for that, but that's what he seems to be saying. I think that's a fascinating idea. Okay, let's see this next one. This next one's also in Perek Beis. It's the end of Perek Beis. So we've had the plan of Bigsan and Seresh, those two officers who wanted to assassinate Achashverosh. Mordechai catches wind of their plan, and he informs the authorities. They are tried, they are found guilty, they are executed, and this is recorded in the king's record-keeping book. And we know how later in the Megillah that plays itself out. Let's see what he writes on this. Vayivukash hadavar, the pasuk says that the matter was investigated, vayimatzei, and it was found to be true. Vayitlu shneim al eitz, and they were both hanged on the gallows, on a tree. Vayikasei b'sefer divrei yamim lifnei hamelech, and this whole incident was recorded in the book of Chronicles before the king. So let's see what Rav Chaim does here. He says Vayichtov b'sefer divrei yamim, that it was recorded in the Chronicles of the king of Persia. What was the normal method of Achashverosh? L'shalem tova, l'misha asalo tova. He wants to pay back good for those who do good for him, because that's what happens when he has a difficult time sleeping and they take out his book and they read him what happened. He goes, oh my God, did we ever repay him? So obviously the approach of Achashverosh was that he wants to pay good to those who do good for him. The Medrash speaks this out. The kan pisom, and all of a sudden here, nishkach kol enim elev kulam. Not only did Achashverosh forget to instantly pay him back, but everybody, the whole court, everybody forgot. It's not till later in the story, he says, oh my gosh, we had this lapse of memory. We never paid back Mordechai. Achashverosh forgot to pay him back. All of his a nobleman, all of his cabinet forgot to pay him back. Isn't that odd? But they didn't forget to record it. He says, look at what's going on here. How he's engineering, pulling the strings. He makes sure they remember to record it, but he also makes sure they remember to forget to follow through on it. And this was all to show us. This obviously was all part of God's heavenly plan. If they were so forgetful, they wouldn't have written it. And if they wrote it, then why did they forget? So God's creating like this extreme, I would say, pinpoint memory loss, that they did not forget to record it, but they did forget to repay it. Vizugam kavanas Chazal. This is what Chazal say in the Medrash when they say, if this is the way it works with earthly record keeping, that eventually it'll be paid back. When God eventually pulls out his book of records, Shenemar, as it says in Navi, alachas kama v'kama. So if it comes out that a melech basar v'dam, an earthly king, when he reads his record book, eventually pays up, so certainly God, when he gets to his record book, will pay back. What do we see? Basar v'dam. This is what we see when it comes to humans. Even though they may not pay back right away, nonetheless, when they do remember, from the record books, tova, they will be quick. They will act with alacrity and they will pay back the good. God obviously intervened to cause this, that Mordechai would get the full repayment. Kol Sheken, so if that's the way it works here with an earthly king, Kol Sheken, certainly HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when it comes to God Almighty, Sheyesh Lo Cheshbon, God has a calculation, Masai L'Shalem, when to finally pay people back. Umasai Tavaso Shalom L'Kabel HaTashlumen, and when's the right time for a person to receive their reward? Alachas kama v'kama. We have to remember, certainly, shelo yelech shum davar levatala. No good deed is going to ever be forgotten. It's in God's Sefer Zichronos. If an earthly king may delay but will eventually pay back, we can rest assured the check will be cashed. Hashem will make certain to pay us back. Azman yishulam al kol davar. When it comes the right time, God will pay us back for every matter. God knows when is the right time. Hashem doesn't forget anything. He's waiting for when is the opportune moment to pay back for what we deserve, for the good that we've done. Odi Shlomar, he goes, and we can even say more. There was a heavenly cause. God had a reason why it was important that Achashverosh would not remember now, would not pay back Mordechai instantly. These two officers who wanted to assassinate him, they probably were pretty powerful guys. They probably had a posse of friends and family members who were pretty upset about the fact that Mordechai turned them in, ratted on them, so to say, and had them killed. And this is the way all of these high ministers work. They all have their posse. It was a mafia over there. This is the way it works with every dictatorship. Every guy who's lower down the totem pole has their group of lackeys who are answering to them because they're taking care of them. So Big Son and Seresh probably had their people. If it was immediately known that it was Mordechai who had hold on them and exposed them, they certainly would have thought of some way, how are we going to take revenge on Mordechai? Therefore, God intervened and caused it. That no one is talking about this. Everyone suddenly forgot about this. The only place that this is remembered is in the record books. Somehow God intervened to make it that no humans are thinking about it. No, it's not on anyone's mind. Why? Because then there would have been this whole call for vengeance against Mordechai. Now look what he did. He got these guys knocked off. God intentionally caused this targeted amnesia. Why? To make it that people would forget. And only later, when the proper time came for this matter, for the deed to be remembered, God intervened to make everyone remember. So he says in the top, I'm sorry. This I didn't mean to have here. This is not a related piece. So that one on the left column is not related to this. So we could ignore that one for now. I had initially looked at that, but I wanted to I wanted to get time for the other ones. So I'm sorry. So it's just that one on the right column on the bottom of page 2. So it's an awesome idea what he's saying. What he's saying is look at the hashgacha. The Megillas Esther is all about recognizing God's intervention and recognizing the fact that God was pulling the strings, and he is pulling the strings, and he's involved in the destiny of Klal Yisrael. And Rav Chaim's pointing out, and I never thought about this before. This is amazing what Hashem did here. He made it that obviously the system is that Achashverosh likes to pay back those who do good for him. He totally forgot. All of his ministers forgot, yet they didn't forget to write it down. So God caused acute amnesia here, extremely targeted amnesia. And he says, but what's the lesson from this? Is that the lesson from this is that Chazal tell us is that if you see a Basar V'Dam, a king of flesh and blood, always pays back. Even if it takes time, we can rest assured that God will. And then he added also that incredible idea that there was a strategic reason God did this. Why did God do this? Because this could have put Mordechai's life in danger. If Achashverosh instantly paid him back and everyone's buzzing, everyone's talking about the fact that Mordechai exposed Big Son Viseresh and had them killed, all of their admirers, all of their posse, all of their underlings and lackeys, they would have been all upset. It's Mordechai to blame, the fact that our boss, the one who provided for us, Big Son Viseresh, He's gone. They're hanged. It's on Mordechai. Now they would have come for Mordechai and they would have lynched Mordechai. So to keep Mordechai safe, Hashem caused this acute amnesia. Besides for the fact, in the bigger Purim story, he needs Achashverosh to forget about this until the right time. So it's fascinating what he's doing. He's just pointing out another level of God's involvement in the episode of Purim. That's something that I know I didn't think of before. I didn't notice before. I thought that was very, very cool. All right, let's go to page 3. This is in Perek Gimel. So in Perek Gimel, it tells us as follows. This is after Haman's decree is made, and remember, this is in the month of Nisan that this all takes place, where he was Hipil Apur, where he drew his lots and cast the dice to figure out when's the right time to kill the Jews. That all happens in Nisan. And when is the day of extermination supposed to be? On the 13th of Adar, meaning 11 months later. So it's 11 months later that's going to be extermination date. And yet the pasuk tells us, Haratzim yatsu dechufim. The couriers, remember, he sends his Pony Express to send the message out to everywhere across the kingdom. We're right now in the middle of Nisan. No time to waste. Get it out now. Get the word out there immediately. And everyone's distraught. So Rav Chaim is going to be bothered by this question. Well, what's the hurry? What's the big urgency? It's 11 months from now is when this decree kicks in. You got to pay all that extra money for the Pony Express. Send it out standard mail. Well, he's going at it. Well, what's the rush? You have 11 months. What's the rush? So he says, Haratzim yatsu dechufim bidvar hamelech. He says that the runners were sent out. They were rushed. Get out there. The king orders you to get out there now. Yesh lion. There's the examiner to ask. Maha dechifus. What was the big rush? Harei haya yud gimel Nisan. This is all taking place on the 13th of Nisan, when according to our calculations, it comes out that the 3-day fast is on day 13, 14, and 15, and then Haman is hung on the 16th. So it comes out that where the deal initially goes out is on the 13th. 11 months later is the Yud Gimel Adar, when the doomsday is. So he says, what's the rush? It's the 13th of Adar in the coming year. That's 11 months later, from Yud Gimel Nisan until Yud Gimel Adar. I understand Mordechai's letters that were to rescind the decree. I understand the rush on those. You got to put people's minds at ease. You got Jews who are having panic attacks. I get Mordechai's rush. To calm down the Jews from the fear that they had. Why was Haman and Achashverosh, what was their rush to get the decree out there about doomsday for the Jews is on the 13th of Adar? It's 11 months from now. Why are you paying all that money to do the rush, the express mail? Venira, Shaharasha Hazeh. It appears this Rasha, meaning Haman, Ratza lahashbis lam es simcha sachag. What is about to happen? This is the 13th of Nisan. What's about to happen? Pesach. And what does Haman say? Not only does he hate the Jews, does he want to kill them, but I want to take what away from them? The joy of Pesach. I want to at least stick them now. I can't, my lottery made it that we can't have doomsday till next year, but how can I make them hurt now? Let me at least demoralize them and let me throw them into a panic as fast as I can. And let's take away Pesach from them. Well, exactly. Lachein ratza sheyedu miyad me'igros. He wanted them to know immediately going into Pesach. Oh, you think you're going to enjoy this holiday? You're going to be in a panic. Ratza sheyedu miyad me'igros. He wanted them to know right away about the decree. Levatel me'em simchas Yom Tov. He wants to ruin their Yom Tov. Take that. You can't even say like, a convicted felon gets his last meal before he's executed. They at least want to make him feel good before he goes. I don't want you to feel good about anything. I want to make your life as miserable psychological torture. That's what's going on here. And he says also, look in the Gemara Shabbos, sheds a little more light on this. I thought this is a fascinating observation. I don't think I ever thought about this before. What was the rush? You're going to get the word out there. You're paying on this day. You got to send out the Pony Express. That costs a fortune. What's the rush? The rush is this is an evil Russia. And what does he want to do? How can I inflict maximal damage? I may not be able to inflict bodily harm until 11 months from now, but I want to hurt you. I want to inflict psychological damage. I want to hurt you mentally, and the way to do that is by sending this out right now. And you should know, as Cindy just said, Hamas. Again, it's no coincidence they picked Simchas Torah to attack. First of all, they're vulnerable, but also a way now what they've done is that that'll always be associated. The trauma that now when anyone's going to be looking forward to Simchas Torah, this is going to be on everybody's mind. This was calculated. The Nazis, you read stuff that they would do. They specifically picked Yom Tovim to do their big actions in the ghettos when they would do liquidations and whatnot. They specifically do what kind of psychological trauma could we inflict? This is throughout history our greatest enemies. They don't do things by accident. They study our calendar. They look at where are we going to feel good about ourselves, and specifically on those dates, how can we drop the boom on you then to try to take away anything? Even if we can't inflict the full physical danger yet, what could we do to at least ruin you psychologically? And that was Haman's tactic as well. I thought that was a fascinating observation. Let's see one more for today. I know it's 12:45, just a couple more minutes. Are you okay with a couple more? Okay, so let's see one more for today. This is in Perek Dalet, the next chapter. So I thought this was a fascinating observation. There's this back and forth between Mordecai and Esther. He's encouraging her, you got to go in and you've got to tell, we got to get the salvation in motion and start to tell Achashverosh that you're Jewish and, put this process together. We got to put a plan together to undo this. And Esther's hesitant, saying, look, the rule is if you try to go into the king's court without being summoned, you get your head handed to you. And let's be strategic, Mordecai. The Gezerah is 11 months from now. I haven't been called in for a month. He loves me. I'm going to get called in soon. Sit on this for a little. What's the rush? Why put me at risk? What's the rush here? That's what Esther's saying. And then you almost don't get the back and forth. And then Mordecai scolds her and says, like, how could you possibly feel you're secure, just because you're a princess? Don't feel that you're going to survive this. And then she says, okay, I'll go, but you got to have a 3-day fast. What was the back and forth? She seems to have a very logical complaint about look, why put myself at risk? We could blow this whole operation now. Why put me at risk? I have not been summoned for a month. He loves me. He's going to want to see me soon. Put this on hold. We got 11 months. What's the rush? That's the question many of our commentators deal with here. I remember years ago, one of my Rabbeim showed me, I think it was the Alshech. The Alshech answers this by saying, because it's Nisan. And Nisan is the Chodesh HaGeula. And Esther wanted to know, and Mordechai wanted to say, you can't let Nisan go past. Nisan is the Chodesh HaGeula. It's not just that God redeemed us once. This is the Chodesh, this is the opportune time for Geulas. We can't let this slip away. The obvious question on that is, okay, but this is the 13th of Nisan. Now you got a couple more weeks, at least give it a couple more weeks. What's the rush? I think what we would say, the Alshech would say, yeah, not only is Nisan the Chodesh HaGeula, but that span of time, Pesach, that is the festival of Gula. We have to jump on this now. That's probably what the Alshech would say there. But so just to let you know, there are answers. Our Mefarshim have been bothered by this. He has a very interesting answer, and that's on page 4. So let's go to this. It's very clear what Esther's approach was. The question is, what was Mordecai? How did Mordecai shoot down Esther's approach? So let's see. He goes, Vanilo nikresi lavo ala melech ze 30 yom. Esther says, I haven't been summoned for 30 days. He's going to summon me soon. So why are we going to risk blowing this? We've got things set up here to save Klal Yisrael. Why risk it? That's what Esther's saying. Very logical argument. And then Mordecai just lashes back at her, saying, he's like wagging his finger. Don't you think you're going to get out of this? But what was his cheshbon? The pasuk doesn't speak it out. So look what he says here. I've not been summoned for 30 days. I'm Be'er Gra. Look in the Gra, the Vilna Gaon. Shekasav she'amra lo. What was she really saying to Mordechai? Shavada yikru li be'elu hayamim. In a matter of days, I'm gonna get summoned. So let's not jump the gun. Vaza dabrito, and I'll speak to him then. Mashenkin mechanes ata. If I go in now without being summoned, akalkelas kol ha'inyan. I might blow everything. And he'll be furious at me. And even if he doesn't kill me, let's say he has Rahmanas, he doesn't kill me, he doesn't hand my head to me. Okay, but he'll still be furious and he won't listen to me. He won't do what I ask. We got close to 12 months. It was 11 months. Why are you risking everything, Mordecai? That's the way the Gra understands, which is very, very logical, what Esther was saying. So he wants to examine, so what's Mordecai's angle? So what was Mordecai's angle? Why was Mordecai pushing her? He knows this. and he heard the argument, yet he still pushes her. No, you got to go now. Why is Mordechai pushing? And look what else was going on. By forcing her to go now, and she's calling for this tanis, it says, what did Klal Yisrael not celebrate that year? Pesach. That means no one had a Pesach Seder. They're having this 3-day fast. No eating, no drinking. They didn't have a Pesach Seder. They didn't have arbakosos. They didn't have matzah. They didn't have any of that. So it's not just are you putting her at risk, not just are you, even if he's got Rahmanas on her, you're blowing your odds of Achashverosh listening to her because he'll be so upset, but you're also causing Klal Yisrael now to miss out on all the mitzvos. And there's a time you want them doing mitzvos. So what are you doing? Just wait a couple days. Wait till Chol Hamoed. Wait till after Pesach. You got 11 months until the danger zone kicks in. Pesach. Wait till after Pesach because you got 11 months till Doomsday. So what's going on? There's a full year. There's 11 months. Why is Mordechai pushing her? Yesh Lomar. So here's Rav Chaim's suggestion. Mordechai thought as follows: Shepachad sheYisrael nesunim bo. The incredible. Remember, Haman was rushing. This links very well to the last one. Haman was rushing because he wanted to inflict as much psychological torture as he could. Mordechai says, "I get it. There are people who are having palpitations at home now. This is sakanas nefashos now. Mental trauma is real." It's not just in 11 months from now, doomsday. So we got till then to sit back and relax. There are people who are having palpitations now. There are people who are down in their nitroglycerin pills. There are people who are having meltdowns right now. Psychological trauma is real. That's sakanas nefashos. You know what this brings to mind? Do you guys remember when during the very, very beginning of COVID, and it was Pesach, remember, because it was right after Purim, there was all sorts of Piskei Halacha going on, and no one knew what was going on. So there was a lot of people who were forced to stay home alone and by themselves. There was such fear of the psychological needs of people. There was mental health wellness lines that were being set up, and they were being advised by their poskim. If you feel having suicidal thoughts, you're feeling self-harm thoughts, call this number. We have from therapists ready to answer the phone on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, whatever it is, because of all the stress that was going on. What happened there was that poskim realized mental trauma, mental anguish is real. We sometimes, it took years for Klal Yisrael to get to this point, to realize, everyone realized sakanas nefashos, physical harm is real. It took us as a people so long to get to the point of realizing that mental issues are real. That's real sakanas nefashos too. And here's the way Reb Chaim's understanding this. He's using this to explain Mordechai. I thought this was amazing. He's saying mental issues are real. Anguish is real. Anxiety is real. That's sakanas nefashos. Kimirov pachad, from the fear that people were having. Lamos, yechol lamos. People could die. He's not talking here about self-harm. They might kill themselves, but he's talking about heart palpitations that could lead to all sorts of trauma. Now that we know whatever about self-harm, that adds to this. But he's saying is that mental trauma leads to physical danger. When he quotes the Sifri, he says, I'm not making this up. The Midrashim were attuned to this thousands of years ago. Because it says in Mechadorim Ema, when it's talking, I think this is talking about the Tochacha. When HaKadosh Baruch was talking, if you don't listen to everything, to step by step, all of the warnings that Klal Yisrael is going to face. So he says there, Ra Cherev Sheba, that we're going to see the marching armies coming towards us. The threat of incoming doom causes a person's heart, the palpitations, to beat umeis. It could kill a person. That's why Mordechai was pushing her. He's saying mental anxiety is a real deal. Lalechas miyad, go now. We don't have 11 months. Yeah, 11 months is till the physical doomsday, but the psychological terror that we're under now, that is real, and that's sakanas nefashos. We have to take steps now to calm people down. Every day that this goes on is sakanas nefashos. This is to me, this is, I have, relatives who work in the field of mental health. I want to share this with them. I think this is a godsend because I'm telling you, as a community, we were very, very late in the game of realizing that mental health awareness is a real deal. And Rav Chaim is saying this, that our Medrash refers to this. Thousands of years ago, Chazal were attuned to this, and he's saying this is what Mordechai was attuned to. So Mordechai goes on to explain to her, Shagam Hiba Sakana. You don't even realize it, but you're in Sakana. What do you mean? I'm a queen. Why am I in Sakana? You're also under mental anguish. This is amazing how he's using this. This makes the conversation between Mordechai and Esther so much more understandable. And that's why you have to risk your life. There's real sakanas nefashos going on now, and not just for others, but for you too. And that's why halacha requires you to risk your life. You yourself are in a questionable state of sakanas nefashos. So then if it's so true, so then why did he say when she threw out, okay, at least have 3 days of fasting and davening? So why did he agree to 3 days? I thought there's sakanas nefashos now. Why didn't he force her? No, you got to go right now. Every day there's sakanas nefashos. What gives us the right to have a 3-day fasting period? Because Mordechai realized without 3 days of significant and sincere fasting, tefillah and teshuva, lo yoel hilchasa, it won't help for her to go into Achashverosh and ask. We need God's assistance here. The only way this could be successful is if we're spiritually deserving of it. We as a people need to engage in this national teshuva movement. So it won't do us any good to just send her into the lion's den. The only way that this could possibly, is imperative, as important as this has to take place now, the only way this could possibly happen as if we engage in teshuva first. I thought this is an awesome piece. This is a really, and again, from my angle, why this is so important, it's not so common that we find sources. This is bringing this back to the Medrash, sources that show us just how important it is to take into account people's psychological, mental health and mental well-being. And boom, he's using this to make sense of that conversation between Mordecai and Esther. I thought that was incredible. All right, I hope I'm sorry, just to be able to share a couple. There's a whole rest of a Megillah that's out there. So God willing, we could revisit more of Rav Chaim Kanievsky's